commanding and controlling. He was in charge, and there's no doubt that he was in charge. And he was attempting and communicating with members of the wider Al-Qaeda leadership team, if you will, that went all the way to places like West Africa, where we see a problem today with like a Boko Haram and an AQIM, all the way back into the things that were going on in Afghanistan and Pakistan. By that time, it probably had grown by about, I'd say close to doubling by that time, and we knew that. They were a very rapid, self-learning organization.
From where you sat, you could come to the determination that the administration was either not reading the intelligence or choosing to go another direction.
I don't want to accuse somebody of lying, but if you say that this is not the case publicly, that the enemy is not this or not that, when your intelligence community is saying something different, are you misinforming? I mean, I come from a different school, and my school is hard knocks, and you tell me I don't tell the truth, I'm gonna be taken to the woodshed on that. And so I really believe, I know, that what was presented is not necessarily what was stated.
Not close.
Yep.
It was diametrically opposed, wasn't it?
I would say, from my perspective, it was just the opposite.
Well, that's the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, General Michael Flynn, talking about the documents recovered at the Osama bin Laden raid that ended up killing him. Some of those, 96 of them, were released out of the 1.5 million today, declassified. Here's one of them, bin Laden's shift of focus from Afghanistan to the Arab revolutions. He says, "We got what we wanted from the Afghanistan front by shattering the prestige of the world's main infidel. And though we will continue our jihad there, yet we should give our main attention to the Muslim nation's revolution that should be illuminated with the monotheism dogma in order to reinstate the rule of the caliphate." Many of them about the Arab Spring, about U.S. policy. And we know what happened. Let's bring in our panel. Yogi Dreesen, managing editor of Foreign Policy. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Charles, thoughts?
Well, I mean, the politicization of this intelligence is really quite remarkable. Remember, in 2012, Obama ran on several premises that helped him get reelected. The first is Al-Qaeda's on the run. The second is the tide of war is receding. Now we are learning from Flynn and from what we're hearing from what's in the million documents that are unreleased is that, in fact, we knew, or at least the intelligence was telling us, whereas the administration was not, that Al-Qaeda was not on the run, doubling in size, shifting the focus from what the administration was obsessively looking at, which is core Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we have Osama bin Laden saying the focus is no longer on the Afghan front. That's really on the periphery. We've gotten out of Afghanistan what we want, meaning we got 9/11 out of it. Now the fight is in the Middle East. It's in the parts of North Africa, even Central Africa, and that's where they were expanding. So as Flynn implies, either they weren't looking at the intelligence, and the implication that they went 9 months, almost a year, without actually studying this stuff is boggling the mind. But what they had, they were concealing, giving out another story. And that, I think, is quite remarkable and unconscionable, given the fact that they were telling the country, as Flynn would say, the diametrically opposite.
I mean, only 120, a tiny fraction of the 1 million plus documents have been released. Only this new tranche, AB, because the intelligence bill on Capitol Hill said it had to be coming out by May 1st.
But there's a small crowd in Congress paying attention to this backstory, and the documents released today are compelling enough that Americans are wondering about Osama bin Laden reading Bob Woodward's books and the letters he wrote to his family, and worrying about food security. But really, the ones that are really important, and the ones that, like I said, a small group in Congress is pushing to release, are the rest of the 1.5 million, which talk about Al-Qaeda's strength today, how it's commingled with current current thriving other terrorist groups. Because the Congress is not debating any kind of strategy over ISIS, because the Congress is walking away from coming together and passing an authorization for the use of military force against ISIS, this kind of debate about whether or not the government is hiding the documents from Osama bin Laden raid that would be instructive to our current national security challenges is not going to come up, and is just going to slip away because they're on to the Iran deal and other things that are stealing the spotlight, but they're not dealing with the fact that there are documents that paint a bigger picture besides what he did in his room in his final months.
But, you know, Yogi, to listen to General Flynn, who, remember, is head of DIA under this administration and has read thousands and thousands of the documents, ones that haven't been released. He says there are documents in here about a relationship, a close relationship and tie between al-Qaeda and Iran. Why wouldn't we want to get to the bottom of that, considering where we are in negotiating with Iran?
I think that there are all sorts of aspects with Iran that we're trying to not pay attention to because of the talks. The fighting in Yemen, the U.S. is not doing a whole lot, in part because they don't want to upset the talks going on with Iran over the nuclear deal. The Saudis are saying, help us, help us. The U.S. is saying, not really, not right now, because to this administration, to this White House, a nuclear deal matters more than Yemen does. So when you have aspects that they would see as peripheral to the legacy-making, history-making nuclear deal, everything else gets shunted a bit to the side, including this. And just to go to a point she was making a second earlier, Devin Nunes from the House Intel Committee, when this came out, had this very pointed statement, the last line of which was, I look forward to seeing the rest of them. So he is one of those small ones that you highlighted who really do want to see the other 1.5 million that we haven't yet seen.
Here is Derek Harvey. He helped work on exploiting these documents as an intelligence officer.
I think, you know, there's a long story yet to be told. We hope the administration will release these documents. I think it's mainly a political calculation at this point and less to do with security or operational concerns. I would like to see those released so that the American public and historians and others that are following the al-Qaeda network can have a deeper understanding of what we've confronted in the past and what it means for the future.
I mean, AB, it's kind of clear that these now former intelligence officers are saying, hey, here's a red flag. We told everybody this, we were reading this, and yet what we were hearing from the administration during a campaign was completely opposite.
Right, but even though President Obama was reelected, it still matters. I mean, it's still critical. And the fact, like I said, that there's not a louder, stronger, larger crowd pushing for this conversation. The administration, as Yogi said, wants to drown everything out and just talk about the benefits of an Iran deal. And so everything else is going to fall by the wayside unless other people talk. If I were running for president right now, I certainly would want to know what this all means. And like I said, I don't see people besides the administration, outside of the administration, really pushing this argument that these are relevant.
Flynn says there's deep connections between Iran and al-Qaeda, movement, communication inside by senior al-Qaeda members. And I even asked him, I didn't run it here, about pre-9/11 knowledge. And he wouldn't go down that road. But imagine what we don't know.
Well, you could see him parsing his words very carefully because he was afraid. He didn't want to go near the line where he's divulging what he knows, but what is still classified. But it is absolutely clear that there was, as you say, a deep relationship with al-Qaeda. Now, think about the administration, where the president said in an NPR interview in December that he wants to see Iran become a successful regional power. The Saudis have their hair standing on end as a result. But imagine how Americans would react if we hear that, and that's the reason that they want to conclude the deal with Iran, to welcome it into a good citizen in the community of nations, when we would know, had they released these documents, that it has a strong relationship with al-Qaeda, which perpetrated 9/11, is actively working around the world to kill Americans and destroy the infidel. And we want to make a deal with a regime that has cooperated with them in the past and presumably still is now?
We're going to stay on this story. There's more to cover here. Next up, a